What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 6 of Straight to the Kokoro. I'm joined by Hannah Perlman. Hannah's a first-year physical therapy student at Hannah. Where are you going right now?
Old Dominion University.
Cool. Okay, at Old Dominion. So thank you for joining me. I know we've connected through like Elish's meditation circles, which have been awesome. And then you also used to be a powerlifter, right? At one point, or do you still training for
Um,
that?
yeah, no, I still train. I am signed up to compete at a local meet in August. Um, so yeah.
Very cool. Are you do you have a coach at the moment, or are you doing your own stuff?
No, I do have a coach. His name's Brad Coolyard.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
love Brad.
yeah, he's awesome.
Very cool. Okay. And then I think like the first thing that came to mind is so you recommended I watched Your Lie in April, which I started yesterday. And I was just describing to Elish the end of the first episode.
Uh-huh.
So I'd be curious, like, where are you in it right now? And what's kind of been what's been your experience watching it so far that you've enjoyed about it?
Oh man, so my fiance and I actually finished it. I want to say a week ago.
Damn.
Yeah, no, uh, we blazed through it. There are lots of laughs, lots of tears. Um, yeah, it was just like the whole spectrum of emotions, really. Um, yeah, I don't know where to start. Um, there were just like a lot of relatable moments as well. And like as someone who grew up with music, like I took piano and violin lessons and like was part of like orchestra throughout school and whatnot, um, and in undergrad. So um, there's a lot of things that were relatable in different ways. Um, and I definitely feel like I could relate to, I feel bad because I already forgot the main character name. um, I could definitely relate to him though, with like, at least on, in terms of struggling to express oneself through music. And I definitely felt like that was a theme that I kind of experienced growing up too, with um, different activities um, that involved like self-expression. So,
Oh, very cool. Yeah. So I'm only on the end of the first one. I feel like I felt so many different things with the first episode because we're just gaining context for. I feel terrible because I watched this last night and I can't remember his name, but I remember the kid who's the head of the soccer team.
yeah,
Um,
I forgot a lot of people's
I
names
think
already.
Subaku, I think was him, or it's I think
Yeah,
yeah.
or
Oh no, that's his childhood friend. That's a girl. Watsuri
yeah.
is the dude who's the head of the soccer team.
Oh, you're right, right.
But I mean, I would hope with like just less than a day, I still remember something. But have you? So I definitely resonate with like the desire to like find your, I guess, your medium for self expression. Do you
Mhm.
have anything now that you really feel is that for you, or was music? Was there a point where music and your relationship to music evolved that you felt you had like found that way of expression through it?
Um, hmm, I feel like it did get easier at one point. Um, like high school was where I think I was definitely like both pushed in a good way, like challenged in a good way by like my violin teacher, and piano teacher, and where I felt like there were moments where it would come out like onto the keys or on through the violin. Um, uh, but there were also moments where I'd struggle still. Um, and like there are times where like my teachers would say like that sounded so mechanical. I was like, okay. And, like of course, like I get so nervous then because I like, so I wouldn't know, I'd like freeze up and like would not know how else to play it. um and like, I mean, looking back, I can kind of hear my violin teacher's words in my head, like, you know, like maybe it'll be easier as you go through like different life experiences. And now I'm kind of like, like I might need to kind of like brush up on my technique and stuff before I really can like dive back in and try
I
try
feel
again.
I think the hardest thing, what I think of it for me is like I've had people give me certain exercises to do, whether it's like some somatic work. Well, that's what I'm thinking about in particular. And like thinking about it doesn't help me do it. I just have to like let go and do it. And then like it flows from there. And then I
Mhm.
remember like when I did it, it was like there was a difference in like my experience of it where I was like, oh, okay, it's now like coming from like my lower abdomen versus like my throat. And I was like, okay, but like try all like I constantly catch myself like where I'm like, okay, I have to do this expression, and I'm like thinking about it too much. And if I just do it, it happens so much better than I ever could when I'm just trying to like think my way through it.
Yeah, that's definitely relatable where like um this kind of reminds me, I feel like Brad had posted something about this at one point. There's like, I don't know if it was like a triad of like conscious, subconscious, and then like there was like a third bubble or something. I can't remember what it was, but like um there's like there is such thing as being like too conscious, like um that like you kind of like you're trying too hard, or you just kind of start fumbling on yourself because you're like a little too aware of what you're doing. And then there's like your subconscious where your body kind of already knows what you need to do and you just let it happen. Um, and like there are definitely moments like if I've practiced something enough, like it will fall into place like when it's time to perform or lift or whatnot.
No, yeah, I definitely know what you mean. I think that's like as much as I hate them, like I've done split squats in part because like Elish gave me so many, like for like 4 years straight, that like I don't have to think about how to execute them too much. Like there's like a couple big rocks, but like if I just demo them and someone's like, "How do you do this?" and I did it like on autopilot, like it just looks pretty good because I've done it so many times. Like you said, kind of the same thing with the keys. Like I've just done it so many times, I don't actually have to like think that hard to do it.
Yeah.
That's funny. Is there so outside of like you're still currently playing, or do you still like mess around with any of the instruments you played growing up?
I haven't touched the violin in a very long time, unfortunately. I'll occasionally like mess around on the piano, but I haven't really done like a, I guess more like disciplined, like routine in a while. Or like try to really like play um any pieces. So
Gotcha.
um yeah.
So outside of like, I guess outside of school, like what do you currently enjoy exploring? I can imagine like it's a ton as a PT student because we were talking a little bit before I started recording to like go through all the memorization of some of the stuff, but in your free time, like what's that kind of look like?
Um just depends. So like sometimes I'll go outside and walk and play Pokemon Go. um I I like to make playlists, and just like discover music or rediscover music. Um uh lately like Elish recommended a book by, I guess you could call this person like a spiritual teacher. His name's Adyashanti.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um, because like I know he has like a Zen Buddhist background, but I don't think he necessarily teaches Buddhism per se. Um, but yeah, he like introduced me to a book called Falling into Grace that I like recently finished. So I'm kind of into spiritual exploration, and stuff like that, and like meditation. Um, yeah.
Very cool. So I listened to that audiobook, but I drove cross country and moved to Oregon.
Oh wow.
So I know exactly what book you're talking about, and I also heard you mention. I haven't checked his stuff out, but I'd be curious what your thoughts are. I think you've done some or read some of Lock Kelly stuff. I think you said when we were on the one circle.
Yeah. I didn't I got partway, yeah, I got partway through one of his books. Um forgot what it was called, but
Is it
um
is it the
yeah,
really popular one, which is probably like effortless mindfulness, I think?
I think so. It's either that one or one that's like a little older but similar, like similar idea.
Okay.
um yeah, and like yeah, it's stuff like I know his, like, or at least I've seen Lock Kelly post on like Instagram like that, um that I guess that he, some of his influence come, or he like kind of, or at least like agrees with like some of the views that Adyashanti's also put out there. um they definitely communicate similar things in different ways. um yeah, like, I mean, he doesn't necessarily say the same things that Adyashanti says, but I feel like the idea of it is like the goal of it, I guess, is still similar to like be able to um, be present and not like necessarily as like the observer, but just as like awake awareness.
Oh
um,
yeah. I know it's like
but just as like
no, please go ahead.
yeah, it's good. Like some, I guess those are starting to kind of sound like buzzwords now. I keep like, or at least those are kind of like Lock Kelly's like kind of key terms. Um, but yeah, just kind of, they both kind of get at um, being able to shift like your state of awareness, um, yeah, to that of being like in that deeper state of awareness.
I think Elish could describe it way better than me, but it reminds me of like, I think Michael Taft said it this way, and I've heard other people. It's like awareness aware of awareness,
Yeah,
like which
yeah.
is trippy in itself. And I don't think I've had the experience of that at this point, but I know exactly what you're describing.
Yeah, like I'm having trouble articulating it, but yeah, yeah. And like, um, yeah, like there are times where I've kind of wondered, like, am I like actually like, I mean, usually they say if you're kind of wondering if you're in it, and you're probably not, but
Yeah.
but it's sometimes like I'll kind of wonder, like, I don't know if I'm here as the observer or like what's going on. And like it's probably more like I'm still here as the observer if I'm like kind of I don't know, it's kind of hard to it, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes, but it's likely that I'm probably thinking too hard about it in the first place.
I think the closest thing I can explain without like, I feel like some of it always sounds nuts because like you'll explain it to someone who's not into any of this stuff at all, and it's like, wait, what? Like,
Hmm.
but I think like for me, at least as someone who like has the habitual pattern of like latching onto their thoughts way too much, like
Hmm.
what I've noticed when I'm it is more of that observer role, but like it's not me thinking, there's just thought happening. Like the tonality of the thoughts is different than if I was like consciously thinking the thought, if that makes sense. Like there's unconscious thought just
Yeah,
happening, and it has
right.
a different sound to it, at least in my head, than like my own conscious thought, which kind of feels like a foreground background kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, and Lock Kelly does mention kind of like foreground, background. Uh, um, yeah, I guess I get what you're saying, as in like you're not really directing your thoughts, as opposed to just like witnessing them,
Yeah,
like whatever
exactly.
the flow of your thoughts are at that moment.
Yeah, but if
Um,
I was to think, they would have a different flavor to them than like the thoughts that are just happening as a stream of thinking, like
mhm,
independent of me.
right. Yeah.
So it's definitely, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of nuanced things that like, there are a lot of nuanced things at this point I don't understand through experience. But I know like even reading some of the books, I'm just like scratching my head like I don't really get it. And it's like
Yeah, like
you'll get it when you get it.
right. Like sometimes like some of his prompts, like for those little glimpses of um awareness, like some of his prompts will be like, for example, think of like a neutral word in your head, and then like for example like blah, and he has like a YouTube video that like walks you through this as well. um and then he'll be like, okay, now like focus more on the space in between each like blah that you say. And um sometimes it just feels like I'm trying too hard to like, instead like all I hear is blah. Like, and like it's hard to kind of hang out in the rest like space in between, or I'll say, I don't know, I was about to say rest note, but uh, my mind's still kind of on like music.
Music.
But but yeah, like sometimes I can and sometimes I'm like it's not happening right now. Or he'll like do something similar where like he'll say um like with a soft gaze like to look at like your hand in front of you, and then like now focus on the space around your hand and like stuff like that.
Okay,
um
cool.
and like um sometimes I'm like, oh, okay. And like sometimes my brain will kind of go off and like, oh, there's like space encompassing this hand, or like everything is within space. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
you just start like
um
intellectualizing your way through it.
yeah, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing that again.
That's
um
yeah, that's one of my struggles too. I'll just be like counting my breath or like really, yeah, trying to attend to it as closely as possible. And I'll be like, wait, how did I get here? Like
yeah.
I'm like thinking about making breakfast. I'm just like,
Yeah,
oh crap, like that's not important. Like the breath, not waffles.
yeah, that happens a lot too when I meditate. Uh Sometimes I'm able to get off of that trains of thought like a little easier than others, but uh I guess at least it's a lot easier to just kind of pick back up and not like get caught in like a loop of or like being hard on myself about it, or like yeah.
I think if I misquoted him, I apologize. Like Elish one time told me in my practice, it was basically like you just have to notice. You don't even have to get like notice the frustration and then like come back from in me, come back to the breath. It's because like the noticing is the awareness that you're not on the breath, or the like recognizing it itself is like okay, that's all that needs to happen. Back to the breath. Like
Right, because like that in itself is awareness.
yeah, you're already
Yeah.
aware that you're not on like the object anymore, and it's like anything else is just like more mental gymnastics and like an elongation of a process that doesn't need to be as long as it is.
Right. Or I
Easier
guess
said than done.
it's yeah, or I guess as some people call it like suffering. um yeah, in a way, I guess.
I mean,
I
yeah,
guess it just
it's
depends.
not what you want. If you're getting mad that you're frustrated, yeah, you're suffering with
Yeah.
frustration instead of just being frustrated.
Yeah.
But that's like I feel like that's its own like weird thing. Like if you've ever I don't know if you've ever described to anyone like at one point I was sitting out in the cold with like Elish at one point in the winter back when I was living in Jersey. He was in New York.
Mhm.
And like there was times where we're cold and it sucks and we're like, this is miserable. Like you have all the mental talk, but like you're not we weren't suffering, we were just cold. And like I would describe that to people like, well, that doesn't like I think it would be confusing at times because it was like, how can you be it's just like I know I'm cold, I know it sucks. I'm just not like averse to it. Like it just happens to be what it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's comfortable.
Right. So it's like, I guess it's like you accept that it's cold and you're not like resisting it or saying like it shouldn't be like this.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It's just like I'm
resisting the
cold.
reality of that
Like
situation.
like I used to really like pain at one point in my back because I could then make that an object.
Mhm.
Like even though it sucked, but I just remember for like longer sits at one point, it was like, oh, cool, like I'm in pain, like, and then I'd focus on the pain and eventually it would just disappear, or it would be worse. But it wasn't like it was just painful. I guess that's like as simple as like it wasn't anything more than it was.
I see. Yeah.
How did you kind of like get opened up to this kind of stuff out of curiosity?
Um, I think honestly it had to do kind of with like a desperation for something to be different. Like in my own like internal state. Um, and I was like, okay, like when I saw I mean I'd been following Elish for a little while on Instagram, and when the circle like one of his first posts about like meditation circles popped up, I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. Um and like even though like technically you're not the aim of meditation is not necessarily to change anything. Like this, like I guess desperation for change is what drove me to to go ahead and try it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally get that. I've heard different people approach it like different, like describe different things, and it's like they're striving till you don't have to strive anymore. Like,
Yeah.
but I totally get that. I mean, that's the same way I came to all this stuff. Like, I was just at a desk job, like super miserable, and then like now I just transitioned to what I do. But I was like, okay, something needs to change, and that was like one of
Yeah.
the things that came along like that path.
Yeah.
So at this
Like,
point, no, go ahead, please.
oh, sorry.
No, please go.
um, yeah, I mean, I guess in a way, like, um, I mean, I'm glad I did what I did. um, I guess like I guess it's easy for me to kind of uh like once I'm told something like it's not for this, like it's for that, like this is the purpose of it, and I'm like, oh, I've been using it wrong, and then I'll feel bad, but it's I guess it's more, I guess the lesson is more like it's okay to have wanted to have expected that, or um
To
it
want to
is
have
what
something
it,
be different than it is.
yeah, or to have gone into it with certain expectations. Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
mean
kind
that's
of
to me.
like it already happened kind of thing.
I mean that just sounds super normal to me because it's like,
Yeah.
like you already know what you know about the thing, so it's like
Yeah.
you go into it with the expectations of everything like anyone's ever told you or anything you've ever seen, and then if it does meet those things, it's like, oh, awesome, it was everything I thought it was, and if it doesn't, and we're like really expecting that, it's just like, crap, this wasn't what I wanted. Like, thought this was going
Yeah.
to be something else. Like,
Right. Yeah.
because
I guess um yeah. Yeah, I mean at the end of the day I am where I am now, so it was okay that all that happened, or that I went in with certain like expectations, and now they changed. So
yeah, I mean
um,
that's definitely all that matters. Has there been like any big shifts since you've kind of started like working on yourself with practice and other aspects of your life? Like, you weren't always, did you always plan on being a PT, like being a PT one day, or was there a different career route you wanted to originally take?
so I PT kind of, I was kind of on and off and then back on with PT. Um, like I organically like developed an interest in it in high school, um, or not high school, middle school um, when I tore my ACL, and then like other slew of injuries throughout high school and whatnot. um, and then uh, what changed my mind, I think in undergrad, I just experienced a lot of social anxiety, um, and like didn't know how to manage it. And I was with an academic coach at the time who was like, well, like, he was like, if you like can't feel like you can't handle it, but still want to like help people in the health field, like you could explore or like at least look into public health. Um, and so like there, I was looking at all like the different kind of realms of public health, um, and uh, like things like community health and whatnot. Uh, and like I was into it, but I was also like not sure if that's what I really wanted. Um, and like I definitely took in a lot of, uh, or really like leaned a lot on feedback from like my parents. Um, like they were definitely on board with PT. Um, and um, they were kind of like, might be a little more like financially stable with PT. And I kind of leaned away from that, and I was like, I want to make sure like it's what I want. um, but I did find my way back to it. And I kind of realized like think I would rather prefer like more one-on-one connections. And I still very much enjoyed learning about movement and like human body. Um, and like with all the shadowing experiences and whatnot, like um, and like going through PTA school and stuff. Um, I and like working, I definitely felt like that was the right path for me. Um, and
Well,
just like needed to confirm that for myself. Like I really wanted it.
that's cool. At such a young age, you got like like you had an idea of what you wanted to do. Especially it was like the ACL injury through sports, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, like you've been on both sides of the coin, like now as someone like in PT school and then like having done PT. So I definitely, yeah, that's definitely really cool to hear. So what was like when did you, was there like one moment or was it like a string of moments that you're like, this is it, like I'm doing PT?
Um, I would say it's a string of moments.
Okay.
Yeah. There are definitely a lot of like doubtful moments as well. Um, like there was at one point in high school where um I started experiencing like paresthesia like in my hands and like face. Um, and like at the same time, like I was also in rehab for like a labrum repair in my shoulder. And like the PT was like where was a little thrown off by like these like new symptoms. And like was doing a bunch of like dermatome tests. Or not a bunch, like he was just testing like the dermatomes, but um just like observing him like memorizing all the different areas that he tested, I was like, oh god, I don't think I can do that. or like or like just like watching him like juggle a lot of different patients at once. I was like, I don't know if I can handle that. And like um yeah, just like a lot of the different things, and like just watching him seem like very like in control and like composed throughout like all this chaos going on around him. um yeah, I mean, there's also just doubts in like my own like ability as well, so
I I definitely feel both sides of that because I even think when I like first started movement or studying like movement, I was just like I would hear people talk about like terms from PRI, which I had like awareness of but no like understanding of. And I'd be
yeah.
like, yeah, it's just like AFIR. And I was like, I think Elish said ER to me once, and I was like, emergency room? And he's like, no, he's like external rotation. I was like, oh, like, but I was like, I had no idea what the abbreviations. And now at this point, it's like, I still don't know all of them like super fluently, but if someone's like, oh, what's like your GHIR? I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, like that's what you want me to take your shoulder internal rotation. Like that makes perfect sense now. But there's definitely moments where like it feels really natural because I've done like some of these things so many times that like when I
Yeah.
explain it to people, I'll just like walk away and it's like, am I full of shit? Like, do I actually have any idea what I just said? Like, because it seems too now it seems like too real to be true because it's so fluid.
Right. Yeah. um yeah, like I definitely felt uh like first learning all like the anatomical terms and stuff um definitely was overwhelming. And then like there are like definitely a lot of abbreviations for everything. um so yeah, it is kind of its own language.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much the times I've been to PT because I tore my labrum in my right hip. It was like
Oh
I just had no idea. I mean, it's great now. Like I never had surgery, and it's one of the best injuries that's ever happened to me. Um, but it was definitely such a huge learning process because it was like I don't really understand how most of this stuff works. Like I just know I squat, things happen, and like I come back up. And then like even still unpacking so much of it, it like blows my mind at times. Like I hate whoever named the operators because they do the opposite of what they're named. Like the
yeah, that's
internist does ER and the externist does IR, and I was like, you guys are jerks. Like
yeah.
this isn't how this works. Like
I'm actually just looking over that now, like the hip and thigh. Like that's what we
really?
just started. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, but there's always conversations that we'll have where it's like, until you're in like X amount of hip flexion, it's like, cool, that thing then flips to doing that. And it's like, what? It's like, okay, I thought I knew it and now I know nothing.
Yeah, isn't that with the piriformis? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the first time I learned about that, I was like, "What? No way, like that's so cool." I was like, "Why?" I was
That,
like, I mean, I guess like it obviously it's necessary. You just like it's like sometimes you just kind of have to like accept that that's just how it is. Um, but yeah, that's yeah, human body's complicated.
yeah, it's definitely, I have that all the time because I'll like ask like my boss Connor questions and he'll be like,
Mhm.
well, yes, but no. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, it does this, but it also does that. And he's like, it depends on like these other conditions. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
never, okay. Like I have to go study for a while and I like just be like, okay, let me Google this and like look at it more. Specifically with like leg stuff, like lower leg. Like I think it's your soul, no, it's your tib anterior, I think does like two different things depending on the action, or I think that's what it is. I have to double check, but it has like an attachment on your tibia and then it runs through your like your subtalar joint, I think, onto the lateral aspect of the foot or something.
Um, I
Maybe.
want to say, I did learn this at one point. Now I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's like, yeah, I think it's like the fifth. I think it's the fifth metatarsal or something like that.
I just, yeah,
Yeah,
I just know it has a weird, like it does two different joint actions that are like opposing, and it's one of those things where I was like, I don't get
um,
it, so I'll have to study more.
like because it does both dorsiflexion and inversion, right?
I'm honestly, I don't want to say it because I don't
Uh,
think I could even say it right. I just know in passing,
okay,
I have to go back through my notes. I was like, it's something along those lines though.
okay,
But
yeah. Well, I'll get to look at that very soon.
yeah,
This class like goes by really fast because we're moving on to like foot and ankle, I think, like in like a few days.
is there any particular
Um,
thing you enjoy studying the most, like out of all your classes, out of all the topics you get exposed to, like in PT school so far? Is there any like one that you're like, I can't wait to go to this class, and then at the same time, like, oh no, I have this class.
um, so far I'm only taking anatomy like lecture and lab, and then we recently started this class. It's like 1 month long. It's called mechanical properties of human tissues.
Okay.
Um, and then like in like a few like maybe like 2.5 ish weeks we'll get to start like our intro to PT class, which is all about like transfers and like bed mobility, stuff like that. um I mean, so far I'm really liking anatomy. um like at first, this is the first time I've ever like handled a cadaver, like a human cadaver, because we didn't have like we weren't allowed to do that in PTA in our PTA program. Um, so like at first I was really nervous about it, but we're like 3, 4 weeks in now, and like I mean I really like get into it. like yeah, like it's just very quick to go into like this kind of flow state uh with just like uncovering and revealing different muscles and stuff. Um yeah. Uh I mean, it's definitely like overwhelming with the pace and amount of stuff that we need to like take in and like learn. But so far, like that is like I really enjoy anatomy. The tissue class is also interesting. It's I think I'm still kind of getting used to like the format of it. um, I'm kind of used to having a lot of like structure. And this one's kind of like uh, it's like a hybrid class. So some of
Okay.
it's in person and some of it's like do on your own kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like I always was hit or miss with hybrids. I'm definitely, the cadavers thing is one thing, as someone who's like still in like fitness movement related field, like I really want to see one sometime because I've seen all the pictures and like people, and it's so crazy to see like the tendons and the size of like left or right stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why what comes to mind is like your scalenes. And for anyone listening, it's like the two big muscles in your neck. Like, I've just seen pictures of like how thick they are, and I'll just be like, oh, that's why your neck can do like so many different things compensatorily.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, because they're like an accessory breathing muscle. Yeah.
Yeah. And they just have
Um,
like so much leverage.
yeah. Have you ever gotten your scalenes dry needled before?
I have not.
Uh,
I had someone who wanted to do I guess it's dry needling, but then they add like what's the like east like the stem to it.
okay, yeah,
And I
yeah.
wanted to do it because it always like I don't know what it would have felt like, but I just always used to watch people just like casually talking at one point, and like their quad would just be like convulsing, and I'm just like, you feel this? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Have you ever had any of that stuff done?
Um, I've had plenty of dry needling done. Um, I've had it, I've only had it done with the e-stim a handful of times. Um, I mean, I personally I haven't really felt like it does feel like it's not really that sore when I have it with the e-stim.
Okay.
Um, there was one time where when I did have it done, um, I guess like the therapist was like slowly turning the dial and stuff, and I guess like it just like was like a smidge too high, and all of a sudden like my back just like seized up, and I was like, oh god, and like the needles came out like bent.
Oh
Like
God,
yeah. I mean I was okay like when they tried again. That can happen.
that's crazy. I did
um
not know that could
yeah.
happen.
Yeah, there's just like that, I guess it's like very little threshold, or I guess it really depends on the person because every body is different. But um yeah, usually I just have it done like without e-stim.
Okay.
Um yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I haven't had that stuff done, but my favorite adjustment is probably getting like my neck popped. Like
Mhm.
I'll actually have like cervical rotation. I'm like, I'm an owl. Like I'll just like because typically I have very little, and when I get it, it's just like it changes everything for quite a while. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This is what I should be
Yeah,
able to do.
right, right.
Because I just think of like as someone who also does powerlifting, I know personally like I stiffen up pretty fast. So like the
Mhm.
first time I actually was like actually rotating or like experienced trunk rotation, I was like, it was just novel. And I was like, I think this is what rotation feels like versus just like moving as like a block. I was like, I think I'm actually
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
moving, like rotating, like my ribs are moving. And I was like, this is weird.
Yeah, like um yeah, for me, anytime I've especially had like my upper back needled or adjusted, like everything else, like like my the rest of like my back just feels a lot better. Um, like with that itself. Uh, and
Yeah.
then yeah, then they'll usually tell me like you gotta keep up with your T spine rotation. Like, yeah, should do that.
I feel like it's so
Yeah.
hard, obviously, though, right? Like I think what I constantly have, at least with people I deal with for more mobility stuff, since I can't like fix anyone and I can't like prescribe stuff like PTs can, like the whole regimen for like a rehabilitation process. But it's
Mhm.
like most of the time I'm like, this is just to help like you like free up space. But consider you're about to go squat like 300 pounds, like this breathing exercise isn't gonna fight the 300 pounds. Like if they go head to head, the 300 pounds is winning. It's we're just trying to like move the needle
Mhm.
because it's it's like just a I don't know, it's just a stimulus thing, I guess, in that sense. Like it's not a high enough nervous system stimulus that like 400-pound deadlift, like 5 drills of breathing, like you can still make a change, but like it's still gonna drive you more towards like extension, for example, than like flexion,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
So like um so you're kind of trying to change like the perception
I'm trying
or
to
like
change, I guess like retrain the system, like where it's like so my like I took my third PRI class, which was like impingement and instability. And he just
mhm,
talks about like you wanting to have like a rivalry between your two sides of your body versus a blowout.
Okay.
So it's like if you go to a high
Yeah.
school and your rival wins like 18 games to one, it's like that's not a
Yeah.
and you win a second game, you're like, yeah, like we're rivals. It's like, no, you just happen to be the other team that won. Well, you want like a 60-40 split. So it's like if I gave someone like
Mhm.
a drill to help them get back, shift more of their weight onto their left side, like I just want them to be more aware of like their left heel, for example, or something like that. Where it's like, oh, cool. I
Mhm.
feel like I'm actually like I have a left side to push off on, versus being like,
Gotcha.
oh, my right leg is like 80% of the workload, my left leg's like a peg leg.
Right. Yeah, that's not really helpful.
Yeah, but at least that's like most of the things that at least I deal with, because most of what I use is definitely PRI inspired, if not PRI.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, um, I definitely like when I was working like in an outpatient clinic, um, that had like a mix of like adults and kids, like there definitely was that um like the clinicians would see like there's obviously like some like imbalance or there's like more favored side in a lot of people, whether or not there is like a neuro thing going or neuro dominant thing going on, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
um
yeah.
um yeah, and they would try things like I don't think any of them were trained in PRI. I mean, I certainly um I don't really have that much experience with PRI. Like I took one like pediatric course because I was working with a lot of kids in my um yeah, like one of the clinic where I worked at the most was like dominantly like pediatric. Um so like I got some ideas of like some concepts, but it was also kind of hard to apply them because kids don't kids like to play. Like it's just like um that's not a bad thing, but it's just sometimes hard to kind of uh direct the treatment like towards a certain like thing, or a certain goal, if that makes sense.
No,
um
I totally get that. Like, I've worked with like really the youngest person I think I've worked with was like 13. And
mhm,
parallel to him, his 17-year-old brother was there. And it was definitely like you could see like the energetic difference, like or how they directed their energy, and like also just like the control of their bodies, because like one of them had been
mhm.
training for like more significantly more years than the other. So it's like,
Yeah,
you ask them to move and like sometimes they're just like taffy or like they just stretch everywhere. And like his brother could actually
yeah,
like stiffen up and like do other stuff.
yeah, yeah. Like a lot of the kids I worked with, well, there's like there were some on both sides. Like, yeah, there are some like on one side of the spectrum, and then others who are like very, very stiff, like contractions, basically. Um, like they were just stuck in like a certain range, and could not go like beyond like that would in like into a range that would be more like beneficial for them. And then there were others who were uh, extremely like hypermobile. Um, like one of the toddlers I worked with, like she really just hung off her ligaments, uh, like in any position really, and would get tired really easily, um, because her tone was just like so low.
Is there
um,
a population? I'm sorry. Were you gonna say anything else with that one?
um, no, I don't think so.
I was gonna say, is there a population like you want to specifically work with when you get out of PT school, if you have any idea?
Yeah, I mean, um, I'm definitely interested in like sport rehab, especially like for strength athletes. Um, I do want to get like at least more explore women's health more too, like pelvic health. Um, I don't know. I've been kind of bouncing around a little bit. Like I am also interested in like treating people with like hypermobility and like chronic pain and stuff like that as well. Um, yeah, there's just kind of a lot of different things, I guess, that I'm into.
I don't.
Um, yeah.
It all sounds really cool to me. The pelvic floor stuff is so fascinating. Like from what I've barely, I wouldn't even say scratch the surface because I just know some stuff, but very basic. But it's like so complex, and I've just heard people like that's like the linchpin, so to speak. Like that's like the game changer for some people to just feel better is like their pelvic floor issues, which are tied to other things.
Mhm.
The hypermobility stuff I've heard more about from like even a friend in the last couple of weeks, where there's like I guess there's a nutritional component to it, he was saying too. And like that's even there's some correlation, I think, between that and like anxiety, like hypermobility, lack of like collagen deficiency and anxiety.
Huh. Yeah, there's a lot I don't know about hypermobility. um, I mean, I've been told I'm pretty hypermobile. Um, like I'm still trying to learn about my body. um, yeah, I mean, I guess that could be a thing. Um, I don't know, like, yeah, there's just a lot I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would definitely say that I am pretty like prone to anxiety. um, and like things that like I've kind of picked up on in myself as well is just like being restless in general. Like or yeah, whether it's restless like can't keep still or restless like I'm tired and I can't find like I need to find a different position to like endure or like yeah.
Oh
Um
no, yeah.
yeah.
I know.
Um
Oh, please.
no, you're good. You can go.
No, I know exactly what you're describing with the restlessness because I'll just like I mean, I've had both. I feel like at this point, like I actually do some sleep hygiene stuff, so it's a little bit easier for me to just like pass out.
Mhm.
But I heard someone even the other day, it was on a meditation related podcast. He was like, you'd be amazed how uncomfortable you could feel just sitting in stillness. Like how much like your urge to just be like, nope, different position, like different position. Like
Yeah.
like that arises.
Yeah, no, that does happen. Or like suddenly I'll feel kind of like a tingly jolt like down like my leg um or like very like burning tingling like in my foot or something or in my hand. And I'm like, I'm kind of like, huh, okay. And it's like I know like there's nothing going like I know I didn't have like any injury lately. Like it's just interesting. And like it's not like my heart rate like I know like my heart rate's okay like I'm like I'll feel like I'm calm but for whatever reason like whatever's happening is happening and like uh were there times where like I'll notice like I'm really way back on like my tailbone like when I'm sitting to like meditate and then like I'll have trouble like finding like that middle. Like I'll feel like I'm either like way too forward or I'm like way too back. Um, like I don't know. It's like my perception just feels off.
I, I feel like with that stuff, like I know that was just seeing me sit from the side, but like even like with the lifting, like just see a picture of yourself. Because the
Hmm.
most crazy thing we run into at the gym is like we'll have people like go into like a little bit of flexion who are super extended. And they're like, I feel like I must look like a tortoise. And I'm like, no, you're just like neutral, if not like slightly flexed. And then we'll like take a picture of them and be like, this is you. And they're like, what the like, but their
Yeah,
perception of
yeah,
it, they're like, I must be like hunched over, my shoulders like in my ears. I'm like, no, actually it looks pretty good.
yeah. That's definitely me sometimes when I squat. Like I'll be and like Brad will comment on it quite a like sometimes where like the bar is like more behind midfoot, but I feel like it's where it like I feel like it's in where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And like and then I'll try to like shift forward a little. I'm like, oh no, I feel like I'm gonna fall on my face.
Yeah, I think bar path is so tricky. Like there's definitely
Mhm.
times I haven't used any of the apps, thank God, in a while. Actually, I don't even squat anymore, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Trying to get big, but where like I would just see it like squiggly line zigzag, and I'm like, well, that's terrible. Like And then I'd
Yeah.
just be like, but it felt okay.
Right. Like for me, what's happened is like if I start behind midfoot and the weight's heavy enough, I'll just pancake over and
Yep.
like and go like and like feel like I'm about to fall over the like my forefoot.
Yep.
And Brad's like and obviously I don't, but like Brad's like, yeah, like that's kind of like how your body compensated to get back to like the middle. But then of course the momentum of like the weight and like coming down and gravity and whatever is like wind up going like way forward over the midfoot instead. So
Yeah, I know exactly what you're describing because it's like I'll have that where like the descent will start out, well, has started out good. I'm like, okay, positioning's good, and then like I'll lose like my core or something, and I'll be like, and I just folded.
yeah.
I'll just be like, oh no.
Yeah. And then Brad's like, just try to start a little more over midfoot. And I'm like, man, like I'm trying to find it. And like when I do, like then it looks like really pretty. And he's like, yay.
Just reps, right? Like
Yeah.
I like does Brad use RPE? I think he used I've known people in the past, I think he's given a combination too, but I could be wrong.
Um he's most at least at this point in time he's mostly used RPE. Very occasionally he's given me like a prescribed weight and then I'll just tell him what like how I felt. um
I think to our conversation on like expectations earlier, right? With whether it be like practice or like go learning a new skill or whatever, like that's I think one of the things that like at least I've gotten caught up in the past. And I actually just had one girl I coached back home reach out where like she's making like really good linear progress, and then she had like a tougher day, and it was like damn. And it was like, yeah, that's also part of the process. Like unfortunately it's not like ever going to be straight linear, and it's just like what do you do on those days? It's like, hey, you could have a bad lift, the rest of the workout could still be good. And it's not to say like it's not going to obviously suck that you're like I misgrooved or whatever happened, but it's like it's also like if everything was like super good all the time and there was nothing, like there probably someone's not like pushing themselves hard enough, like, or there's some other component there that they're missing that they actually are like there's still something to always work on basically.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely have run into that. Um, like expecting things to just continue going in this like nice upward trajectory. um, that's definitely how it started out when I started powerlifting. Like numbers were just shooting
Yeah,
up.
to the moon.
Uh, yeah, I mean, with bench press was kind of different, like where I would like go up and then it would stay kind of like at that like one rep max for a little while. And then like, I don't know, after a certain point, it like really shot up. And now I feel like I'm kind of back at that, like, I don't want to say plateau per se, but like, I guess that's kind of what it is. Or for whatever reason, it's just not like, I'm not ready to like, it's just not there yet. And
Yeah,
that's fine. Um, I mean, like even with squat and deadlift, um, like I'm kind of at a point where I'm just trying to have my body like continue to like be okay with those movement patterns. It's definitely a lot better lately. Like about I think about almost 3 years ago now, um, I like strained my back while deadlifting, and like all these different symptoms kind of started to happen afterward. Um, like I was starting to get like tingling in the saddle area. Um, yeah. I guess for those who are listening, saddle area is basically like groin tailbone-ish like area. Um, and like I mean, and that nothing worse happened than that. Like I was completely in control of like going to the bathroom and stuff. Um, but it was weird. And like not too long after I started getting like these like pelvic, like posterior pelvic floor, like really painful spasms. Um, and like I wasn't really sure they were related because it kind of like seemed at one point I started to like notice it seemed to kind of line up with like my monthly cycle. Um, so then that's when like I started taking birth control continuously and that like helped that calm down. But um I mean, I definitely still experience like a good amount of tightness in that like area. It's just not like painful, like clenching, like sitting is like not pleasant anymore kind of thing. But like, um, yeah, so then like for a long time, uh if I tried like even 30% like with deadlifting especially, like my back would just like seize up. Um and my pelvic floor was okay when I lifted at least. Um but I mean the two are very like closely physically closely connected. So um yeah, I mean now I'm definitely like with a lot of like rehab and just kind of like dialing down like the intensity and stuff and just trying to like desensitize. Definitely at a much better place now. Um, and like there are days like it might not be during the training session, but like the day after where like my back, like I'll go into like the slightest bit of flexion or I'm just sitting and it just like um seizes up and I'm just like, okay. like um But I mean, like, I'm glad it's not happening like while I'm training anymore. But there's still work to be done to kind of like, uh, I guess, get my body into like to kind of teach it that it's like totally safe.
For sure. Do you feel like, I think for at least in my experience when I like tore my labrum, it was like one of the best learning experiences because I had to go through the process of like, what am I dealing with, kind of understanding some of the structural aspects, and then like getting into like, okay, how do I go about improving this? Do you feel like this is like, in going through all this, like has it helped you yet, or do you think it's going to help you in terms of like working with people in the future, especially if they are strength athletes, and in particular like female strength athletes, if any of that's tied to some of the pelvic floor stuff? Not that males can experience it, but I know there's like more prominence of it for like female competitive lifters.
Right. I think yeah, for both of those things, excuse me, yeah, like I think going through those experience only like motivated me more to like go into the field. Um Sometimes I feel a little like I guess guilty in a way, like oh, I'm going into this like to learn more about myself, but I feel like in a way that can only like benefit me. um like and like it definitely I do see that serving me down the road when I work with patients who may be going through something similar, or I can at least relate to what it's like uh to go through something that's ongoing. Um like I think it definitely also got me to really like see what am I doing to contribute to this. Like back when like my brother was coaching me, we definitely talked a lot about auto regulation because I like didn't do that.
Yeah, you just
Uh,
sent it all the time.
like yeah, like he got better at kind of like shifting the programming around. But like he sometimes like he would write something down and I would like really try to like I was married to that number for the day. And like um and he'd be like, hey, like that doesn't look like, because he would put both the number and like a recommended RPE. And he
Yeah,
was like, hey, like you hit this number but it looks like two RPE, like two levels like above like what I the like the range that I want or like whatever. And
yeah,
like it wasn't the prescribed RP, like I overshot too much. And he'd be like, yo, like if you're not feeling it or if your warm-ups are not like moving like smoothly, like then just knock it down. Like I'm not gonna be mad or anything. Um yeah. Uh so like that was like a big thing that I kind of learned that the hard way, I guess, like that I need to like not ignore things like what I'm feeling.
yeah.
um yeah. um and like I mean, all of this definitely got me more into learning about like the pelvic floor and chronic pain um and kind of like that kind of like trauma informed care, like for like that kind of lines up with chronic pain. Um, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I think anytime you're doing something that's like organic to the stuff that you enjoy doing, like you're obviously going to do it the best. Like if I could say anything from like Connor, who's my boss, like loves movement, and like I don't think his brain ever turns off about movement. I think that's actually one thing if you work in like physical therapy, chiropractic, like maybe orthopedic stuff to some degree, or even training, like you just can't unsee things once you start seeing them. So like just watch people's gait and you'll be like, oh no, like that doesn't look like my gait's not perfect, but like you'll see someone to be like your toes are like pointed out to like, I don't know, 10 and 2 o'clock, and you're just like, that's not it. Like
Yeah.
you're missing
Yeah.
this like joint action, or like you're compensating, which might not be a problem for some people. But I know like
Yeah.
I chronically do the opposite, or I did, was like sandbag. So I'd be like, yeah, that was an 8. And then like Elish would times be like, that was a 6. Or
That's
oh,
yeah.
I gotta go up. And then I remember I went up once and all my numbers like jumped, and I was like, damn, that means I gotta train harder. But
That's also relatable, the sandbagging.
I'm just really good at that, but I'm definitely also in coaching people. Not that I've coached like a huge number of powerlifters, but in the people I have, it's like I've gotten videos similar to like what you've experienced, and I've done it too, where it's like, hey, I think I had 2 more in the tank. You had no more in the tank. Like go home. Like you're not doing any more.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually think, I don't know, I sort of oscillate a little bit. Like, and I'll tell Brad too. I was like, might have pushed a little bit. And he's like, um, and like he'll tell me like, oh, like this looked good, that still looked pretty good. Like, um, and like he's told me before, like as long like I don't mind if it's like half or like a
Yeah.
level over like the RPE, as long as it's not like 2 or like, or you're
Yep.
not like trying to jump up like 10% or something or whatever. And um he'll and then there are days where I don't know, hasn't really told me if I'm sandbagging, but like it kind of came up after, it was kind of like during a meet recap where he was like where he said like, I know like you're probably being more cautious, and I'm like, yeah, I might have sandbagged more than a few like sessions. Like, and he's like, no, it's fine, like you need to do what you're comfortable with, especially if like I tend to train like alone too.
Yeah,
um
that's tougher.
yeah. But like sometimes if like my brother's free, we'll like FaceTime or I'll text him and be like, hey, like what does this look like to you?
Oh yeah, no, I've done that a bunch
Yeah.
of times.
Yeah. And like he'll be like, oh yeah, like this is like, it looked like an RP7. I was like, okay, like I need to go for an RP9. He's like, yeah, you can go off. And like sometimes having like an outside eye, like
Yep.
just, yeah, it just helps. Because
Well,
like sometimes sorry,
no, please,
uh
please. You're
yeah,
good.
no, sometimes like in the moment it can kind of feel like an acute like fatigue, but it still moved really well. Like
Yeah.
and then like, but sometimes like the going up and like that set after like actually feels better. So
I feel like that just comes back to like knowing yourself to some degree, like your own
yeah.
like velocity profile and how like a lift actually, what does an actual like 9 feel like?
Right.
Obviously
Yeah.
it's subjective on some days, right? Like how you're feeling. But I've definitely had
Hmm.
that where like people are like, I was like, yeah, that was my last set. And they're like, that was your last set. That was like like a 7. Like, what are you working up to? That was supposed to be a 9. And they're like, oh, you got to go up. And I'm like, now I'm doing all these extra sets to try and get to a 9. And
Yeah.
then like
Yeah.
I'll send it to someone and they'll be like, yeah, that's a 9. I'm like, see, that felt like an 8. And like it's like it doesn't line up with like my.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I definitely get that. I'd be curious. So I know like going back to kind of circling back to the very beginning, like your lie with April so far is so many feels for me. So I'm gonna definitely dive into it deeper. I'd be curious, like what other animes have you enjoyed, whether it be shows, movies, like, and what's kind of been maybe a couple that have really spoken to you and why? And it doesn't have to be like every, yeah. They're not in any order or ranking.
Okay. Yeah, no, like leading up to this, like to this conversation, I kind of like reflected like, oh, what if I watched like and like it kind of hit me how like big anime has been how much anime has been like a part of my life. Like even growing up, like my cousins would talk about it. Um like when I was like in elementary school, like at that time, like early 2000s or like late, like super late end of 1990s. Like they'd talk about stuff like Trigun and like Beck. I still haven't watched either of those, but
Yeah,
like or
I know
like
one of them.
yeah, which one?
Trigun. I've been recommended
Okay.
before.
Yeah, and like Cowboy Bebop, which I did get around to watching in high school, and I thought it was like amazing, especially with like the whole like jazz and bebop like incorporation. I loved that. And like I liked that they kind of that I think his name was like Watanabe, the producer or
Oh, okay,
director.
I got you. I
Yeah,
was like,
he kind
okay.
of ran with that. Sorry.
No,
Yeah,
you're
he kind
good.
of ran with that with Samurai Champloo and like
Oh, I didn't know that's who did that.
I think I think he was part of it. I don't know
Okay.
if he like helped produce it or if he helped direct it. But yeah, like the whole like hip hop scene like being incorporated into that, like that was cool too. Um and like and then like one of my cousins, he also introduced me to like other kinds of animes like slice of life, like uh there was this show that I really liked watching is called Honey and Clover. Have you heard
Okay.
of it?
I have not.
Um,
But is it a slice of life?
yeah. Yeah, it's really funny, but there also is like a good mix of like feels in it too. Um, I don't really remember the plot anymore, unfortunately, but like um the intro to it is really fun to watch. Like it's just very memorable to me because there's like food in it, like lots of food.
Okay.
And there's like if you pull it up, there's like a little surprise at the end. And like the first time I watched it, I like jumped out of my chair because I like didn't expect it. Um, yeah, you should just watch it.
I kind of have now. I have like expectations of like something jumping out of the food. Like I'm just imagining like a Jack in the Box scenario. But I'll watch it and let you know.
I'm sorry, I probably spoiled that.
No, no, you're good. You're good. I mean, these are my expectations, so we'll see. It might be totally opposite.
And then like he also like introduced he tried to avoid anything that was like really violent for me at like you know like 10 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
He like tried to steer clear of that. Like one time I walked in on him watching Cowboy Bebop and there was like some shower scene and he was like, oh god, like
Cover your eyes.
like yeah, like it was just I mean they didn't show anything. It was just like I think Faye was in the shower and she was getting like ambushed basically. um I think by I don't know if his name was Gren or something.
Oh, I know
Greta,
exactly what
Gren.
you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah. That was I think that was the scene because like the moment when I was watching it like way later on, like in high school, and that scene came up, I was like, oh, this seems really familiar. And I was like, why am I thinking of like my aunt's place? And I was like, oh like, but yeah. Um Yeah, like there at one point I think there was also a time like I can kind of I guess kind of pinpoint like what I watched through different like stages of my life because like my brother and I used to watch like Beyblade and like Metabots and Pokemon and like Dragon Ball Z, which my mom didn't like. Like growing up and like Toonami was like a
Oh
big
yeah.
thing. Yeah. And we grew up with Naruto. Um I'm sorry, I'm like kind of rambling on
No, you're
here.
good. You're good.
Um,
It's all nostalgia for me because Jami was like
yeah,
huge, where it was like 7 or 8 p.m. on a Saturday. It was like, oh, cool.
yeah, like even my parents would join us like to watch like Justice League.
I remember that.
Um,
Yeah, that was actually pretty good
yeah,
too. I really liked it.
Yeah, like my fiance John and I, like we still occasionally go back and watch like Justice League or look for like those other superhero shows to like reminisce. Um, uh, yeah, it's hard to say like what really resonated with me most because a lot of them in some way, like, um, like I connected with a lot of them in some way. um, I guess like not too long ago, I kind of got a little bit back into like those. Have you heard of like the magical girl like shows? Kind of like shows like Card Captor Sakura, or like
Sailor Moon would, I guess, be
uh
in there, right?
yeah, I guess so. Honestly, I don't know how I missed like the Sailor Moon boat.
I don't.
Like I've never watched an episode.
I know what you're talking about because I was watching one of the Fate series has that kind of part in it where it's like I was looking up. I don't know if you're familiar with them, like the Fate Stay, like there's Fate Stay, Fate Zero, like there's a bunch of them. But at one point there's like some that's in there somewhere in the later ones where it just kind of like goes off on a tangent.
Yeah.
It's definitely I didn't watch a ton of it because I just didn't like the animation style because I think they switched studios and then they switched back, I think. But it was definitely there was like I think they literally said magical girls at one point. I was like, oh, okay, that must be what this is.
Okay. Oh, okay. I remember the name now. It's called like Madoka Magica.
Okay, I'll have to look it
Um,
up. I feel like that maybe sounds somewhat familiar.
yeah, they also like I guess they also had like another series or like movies that were built on that original series. Um, basically like what happens is like I'll try not to like spoil the whole plot, but like the premise is like there's this like cute looking cat like alien creature that comes to that like meets these like teenage girls and like promises them like uh like a wish, and it's kind of like
Oh my god.
I'm giving a little bit away.
No, no, you're
It's
good.
kind of
I know
yeah.
the exact opposite version of this that you don't probably want to watch. That's like super
uh,
graphic.
okay.
Like it's super
Okay.
violent, but the basis is almost there's an alien, there's wish granting involved, but it just gets like
Yeah.
twisted in the exact opposite way that you
Oh
ever thought.
god.
You know.
um yeah, so there's like this alien creature, it's called like the cube, and he's all like nice and friendly, but like he basically like uh convinces these girls to like make a wish for like magical powers, and like save the world, blah blah blah. But like secret, like there's a catch to it, and it's like
Yep.
they basically like it's like a big like and like there's no going back, like you can't change back, and like it's okay if I kind of give a
Yeah,
little more away.
you're all
Okay.
good. I tell people all the time,
Okay.
you just go full bore. I don't care. Like
Okay.
you're saying this too, so if anyone wants to stop, they could just stop.
Okay. Yeah, basically like it's obviously not what it seems. Like they're basically trading their life away. Um, because like their soul gets condensed into like a soul gem. And like if it as the more they use their powers, the more their gem gets corrupted. And then like eventually if it gets corrupt enough, there's this whole cycle because they have to like defeat these witches to like keep their soul gems like pure. But if the more they like there's kind of like a balance, because if you use too much of your power then it gets too corrupt and then you become a witch. um and it's this whole cycle, and it's all to like maintain like order in the universe or something. um so but like the cube, the alien like basically like uses like emotional manipulation to kind of win them over.
Yeah,
Like there'll be like problems like in relationships or with their family and stuff, and they like don't want to deal with it anymore, so that's kind of like he kind of helps tip them over into like making that like making that sacrifice, or like but they don't know that they're sacrificing their life until it's like too late.
gotcha.
um yeah. So that's like the premise, and like once they find out the truth, like they want to kind of like stop it, but they don't. Like it's kind of like, how do we do that? um, but yeah, and that like uh, at one point, like I was just kind of like on the internet looking up that show, and like an article popped up about like making a parallel. This is gonna get kind of heavy. Like they made like a parallel between like that like whole thing, like deciding to like leave your life behind for this. Um, well, not they didn't know that they would leave their life behind, but like they compared it to like suicide. And I was like, oh wow, like that makes so much sense. And like it kind of like as I went back and rewatched some episodes, um, like all these girls like were kind of going through this like terrible thing together. And like um I think it was like in the one of the sequel series, like I think like one of the differences was like um the girls were more like they didn't feel as alone in it. Like they were able to kind of go through it together. Um but yeah, that just kind of hit hard. um and uh yeah, it was just like it was a very interesting way of like kind of making a metaphor toward like of that. um yeah.
Definitely sounds like it. I mean, I haven't seen it, but like based off the gem and like this is my assumption, like so none of this is actually spoiler. But like I would imagine like maybe like the more corrupt it gets could be like their willingness to live or like have their actual normal life kind of. And then like one
Mhm.
aspect of like maybe maintaining the purity is like a willingness to live. I have no idea, but I've definitely seen quite a few shows that kind of emulate something similar to that. But not that exact same way.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of paradoxical because all the action that they're taking, like they mean like well by it. Like they're trying to save people or like keep the world safe, but it's also like taking a toll on them.
Yeah, maybe you
Uh,
don't the things you do that you don't realize that are hurting yourself.
yeah. Um, yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. I mean, I haven't seen I've started rewatching like more retro stuff at one point, which was like Yu Yu Hakusho. I would attempt to
Yes.
rewatch Inuyasha, but I don't have that much. I don't feel like investing that much time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I definitely grew up in a kind of similar way. Like my dad used to watch Naruto with me until they took it off because I think they ran out of dub. Like sucked it for something else, but it was at like the worst point too that they like changed it right when Sasuke's brother shows up. I was just like, come on,
Oh,
man, like for
yeah.
the first time. But I think like a show that kind of I really like that if it because of the whole consciousness thing that we're kind of talking about our awareness is like ReZero. If you've ever
Mhm.
heard of that show, like
No.
it's in that like isekai genre. So like someone gets transported without like going into it, but like his whole thing is like no matter how many times he no matter how many times he dies, he retains all he basically goes back to like the previous point he saved, so to speak. But he retains all the memories like that he retains everything every time he dies. And there's like a lot of different mentions of like is do you care? I guess do you care about spoilers before I go into this? Because I could just stop.
No, I you can go ahead.
Basically, like without going too far, it's like at one point there's just a question of like, is this actually the same timeline? You just went back, or is this a whole new timeline? And every time he's died because he's in this world that's like super dangerous compared to where he was in like modern Tokyo, I think. Like,
Wow.
is it a different timeline where everything kept happening even though you're not there? Like,
Mhm.
and it's just a really good show, but it's definitely one of those things that like if you're into that whole this whole like realm, it's like kind of insane. And you're like, okay, this guy's literally like the psychological torment he has to deal with at some points is like ridiculous.
Wow. What how do you spell that?
So RE and then just zero, so ZERO.
Oh, okay.
But it's one of my favorite shows. It's definitely like a good mix of a lot of different things. I haven't read the light novels yet, which I think are farther than the manga, but it's really good. It's really interesting, and it's definitely very heavy at times. So it's like I stopped watching it at one point because I was like, I'm not in a place that I can watch this.
Oh man.
But it's really good. It's not the show like with the alien. That's a whole other show.
Yeah. Um, this just kind of popped up in my head. Another show that I watched not too long ago. Have you heard of Mob Psycho?
Of course, yeah, great.
Yeah, that was another one that like uh, I mean I cried. I cry a lot, but or I
Listen,
cry easily, but uh yeah, that was another show that like it started out really funny, which was what kind of like I was like, I like this, it's really like hilarious. And then it hits you with all these feels. Yeah.
the end of season three, no, the end of season two, I think, if I
Yeah.
recall, like his decision at one point, I was like, wow, like I was not expecting this. Like I think it was season two or season three. I'm not going to describe like what happens if you've watched that far.
Um I want to say I want to say that we caught up, but I'm not sure.
I feel like it's whenever
Um,
they're fighting the organization of other people that are all like telepaths or have some kind of ability in that realm.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
And the dude who's like a businessman, like when he kind of goes off and Bob's like, no, I'm gonna stay here with you. And I was like, oh God, dude. But
yeah.
no, I feel you on like the crying part. Like one of my favorite things is that I'm pretty sensitive to a lot of stuff. So like definitely like romantic comedies always crush me. Like because there's generally
Oh,
like both comedy and then like some points I'm like, oh my God, like this person's opening to their experience through this connection. And like
yeah.
I don't know, especially like Weathering with You. Your name's ending just made me want to throw my television out the window, but
Oh, I those. So in a previous podcast that you were talking about those movies with, I can't remember if it was it maybe Tetsuya?
probably
Or,
it's either him or
uh,
Sean, probably.
yeah,
Those ten.
I wound up writing those down because I've seen the commercials for both of those and then like forgot about them. Um,
So
but yeah.
I would say definitely watch them. If you want something that's like I thought it was really good, it's on Netflix, is Bubble. Um
Okay, yeah. I've seen the trailer for that
it's
too.
so good. The animation
Yeah.
was ridiculous. I really love the story. I've like
Yeah.
rewatched a couple clips from it multiple times. They were just like so feel good, but I'm like I was not expecting like that movie to be like 8.5, like 9 out of 10.
Nice. Yeah, I love I especially like those movies when there's like some kind of like fantasy kind of aspect in it. Yeah. Um there was another like animated movie on Netflix that we watched not too long ago. It's called A Whisker Away.
Think I may is there a cat? I feel like is there a cat in there or something? Like I feel like I've maybe seen the cover art.
Yeah, there's like a cat mask and like there might be a cat also.
Okay, I haven't
Um
seen that one
um,
yet. Was it good?
I liked it a lot. Um, yeah. I mean, anytime John and I watch something together, sometimes he'll kind of look at me like to see if I'm crying, and like it's like 99% like guaranteed that I'll cry. Um, like there are a lot of really good moments in that movie, um, for sure. Um,
I mean, I'm right there with you
yeah,
on the feels train. I mean, even though this isn't anime, like at the end of Marley and Me, if you've seen it,
no, I haven't.
okay, I'm not even gonna go there then. But like, you know what the ending is if you start watching the movie. And at one point, I was like, I was just wishing for this like impossible scenario where it's like
Yeah.
this happens and like this doesn't happen to the dog. And I was like, nope. But I think in terms of that, it reminds me of I know I said this with I think Tetsuya, like I want to eat your pancreas, which like I remember I told someone the name and they just looked at me and they're like, how is this wholesome? I was like, trust me, it's wholesome. And they watched it, they're like, oh my God, this was amazing. I was like, yeah,
I,
terrible name. And it
I'm
makes
gonna have
sense
to
if you
look
watch
that up. Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. If you like romantic comedy stuff at all, like I'm trying to think what's a parallel to it. Like My Dress Up Darling has a lot of parallels to it, which is like newer this season. I feel like A Silent Voice, which I haven't seen in a while. Like I need to rewatch it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was another thing I kind of nudged John to watch it with me, and he did like it. Sometimes I get kind of like uh I guess cautious because
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But
Well,
yeah, no, most of the stuff, like, I mean, if there's something he doesn't like, then it's whatever. We just pick something else. But he really liked that movie a lot. I think I had read the manga at one point. Um I can't remember what the differences are between the manga and the movie anymore, but yeah, I mean, um just like I cried a lot, especially as like all the X's on people's faces were like starting to fall off.
there's other.
Like
Oh
his
my god,
world
there's
was just
other
like opening
shows.
up.
Yep,
Yeah.
I've seen that. Like, there's so many metaphors throughout other shows, but I've seen that with Love is War. It's like Kaguya-sama Love is War.
Mm.
It's the epitome of like what you overthink when you're in high school and like you're interested in dating someone. It's like, oh my god, if I share this piece of cake with her, she'll know I'm in love with her. And it's just like the narrator's great, but like there's moments for one character who's like this shut in person that like no one has faces, and then they all have faces, and like they're all embracing him because it's like a certain moment in his like I guess character development. But
Yeah.
I remember watching A Silent Voice at Anime Boston or whatever the convention was, and we just
Mhm.
stumbled into this like theater that was like in there. And I was like, "What am I watching?" And I was just like, I had no idea. And then like towards the end, I was like, "What am I watching?" Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
so
it was very cute and wholesome. Um like the way like and like the scene with his mom too. Um when he like uh yeah, and sorry, this is probably a spoiler to whoever like this it is a spoiler. Like when he was kind of just done, like when he was getting ready to like commit, um, yeah. Like that scene, like I cried a lot. um, and then and then like all of his like savings got burnt.
I
Like just
feel like
like
that's just
no.
I feel like that's just part of it. Like I think of so many shows where like, thank God I've now finally saved up enough money for this, and you're like, and there's a house fire, and it's like, really? Like that's like the I feel like that's always kind of like the asshole with some movies. Like not even just anime. I feel like it's more in movies. Like it's like time travel. Like everything goes wrong. It's like good thing we have time travel. It's like, all right, guys, stop like using that card. Because
Yeah.
I remember the dude who wrote Attack on Titan. I had heard, I think it was like 5 years ago at this point. He had finished the ending before like the anime was so still like I don't even know if there was season 3 or 2 at that point, but he was like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna kill everyone," and people were like outraged, and he's like, "Okay, okay, okay, like I'm not
Yeah,
gonna do
yeah.
it." And it was just like, "What are you now?" Then I was like, "Well, I still want to watch it because I want to know how he does it." But I don't
Mhm.
know if that's a show you and your fiance have caught up on. But that show, literally, like season 4, well, I was just like mind blown, like sitting on the couch, like, what is happening?
Yeah, no, we're behind for sure. Like, I don't know if I actually watched that with John or if I watched it by myself. I didn't get that far. Like I did keep reading the manga at one point.
Yeah,
Um, but there's a like my memory with that show is like extremely fuzzy at this point. Um, like I remember finding out when like Annie was like a shifter.
yeah,
Um,
and the
and
season 1.
like yeah, okay. um,
But season
and
one's
then there's
24
like
episodes. So season one's like
yeah,
super long.
yeah. And then like Aaron trying to figure his stuff, like his abilities out. Um, and then there's like there was a girl named like Krista.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. and like there's like some kind of like shady stuff going on with like I don't know if it was like with the church or something. Like there were like titans in the wall. Um
I feel like you're farther than you think you are then probably if you're recalling
yeah,
that.
they're like
That's
everything's really spotty.
yeah,
Like
because
they're like things weren't like what they seemed like at the
yeah,
very beginning, like everything was so black and white, like titans are bad, humans are good. And like um yeah, all I remember is like no, things aren't as like straightforward as they seem. Like um and like yeah, like I'm missing some pieces that were probably like explained at some point along that like to that point, like as for why like I know Aaron's dad uh I think Aaron's dad did that, like used like made that shifting thing happen, or like gave him that ability. I'm not
yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
one of the
like
flashbacks.
I forget if that was like so that he could like protect like his home, or if that was there was like a much bigger
So
thing behind that.
you
Um
I could spoil that, but like you need to watch it because like when you get
okay.
like through enough of it, like
It'll
you'll
make
just
more
literally
sense.
just be like, that made sense. And then like automatically like the side of your head will just break off and you'll be like, wait, whoa, 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 how did this happen? Like, because they just
Yeah.
it definitely takes some turn. The end of I feel like you're probably somewhere in season three based on what you were describing. But
Okay.
by the time you get to like the second half of four, like you're just like, okay, this man's gone off the rails. Like,
Yeah, like I do remember, I think it was from like the last episode that you released. Like there are some crazy things going on, and like Aaron's perspective was like a lot different. Like I remember him being uh like he seemed a lot more innocent and like passionate about protecting uh people. Um like he just seemed a lot more innocent from what I remember. So I don't like I definitely need to go back and like watch or at least
yeah,
read.
it's definitely worth watching without going like super deep into it. But it
Yeah.
reminds me of like there's definitely other shows where like characters lose themselves so far, like they're so invested in their mission they lose perspective of everything else.
Hmm.
And like a really good show for that is Gundam Iron Blooded Orphans. I'm not a huge Gundam person. My tattoo artist actually recommended it to me, and like, oh, I almost cried I think multiple times because it takes quite a bit. But like, it's these
Yeah.
kids who basically have to grow up way sooner. Like, there's a lot of like trauma stuff in there. But like the
Hmm.
one kid essentially just like he's not even like he's like lost his humanity by the end of the show. Like his morality's kind of gone, but like it's all in sight of like freedom for everyone else. But it's just like you see him like completely like just slowly becoming like dehumanized, and it's insane that like there are references to like Catholicism in it. Like
Hmm.
I don't know Latin, but I had to look up some words in Latin. So like the T Rex is named Rex because King in Latin is Rex. And there's
Hmm.
other like acronyms off like the Gundam suit he has that you're just like, oh, okay, like he's becoming more of an animal, and like the suit's change portrays that change in his like personality too. So
Hmm. Wow,
it's definitely
that's
really
deep.
good. It's oh yeah, I was like, I mean, I started Evangelion, if you've seen that.
No, I've heard of it. I've heard a lot about it.
The main character's life just sucks. Like I don't think this man ever gets a break. I'm only like 6 episodes in, but I'm just like, what? It's only 13 episodes, but I'm like, God, like I feel bad. I feel really bad for this man.
Jeez.
But the opening to that has like the tree of life in it, so it's like I don't know. I'm always curious where like the mangakas or like animators just draw their inspiration from.
Okay.
But I think where I would say like a good ending question, if you had to just whatever comes to mind, if you had to recommend an anime to someone who's getting into it for the first time, what would a recommendation be?
Oh man. One that immediately came to mind. It's
Yep.
really cute. It's called Kotaro Lives Alone.
Oh, like I've heard really good things about it.
It's adorable, and it's another one of those shows that can really like hit you in the feels.
Uh,
um, yeah, like Yeah, it's like a nice mix of cute and funny, and then also like very emotional.
Okay, I haven't seen the emotional one from the trailer part and how he talks. Like he talks like a kid to the grown-ups, and I know like he obviously lives alone. Um,
Yeah, he's very formal.
yeah, he's like Mr. So and so, like Mr. Neighbor or whatever. And I'm
Yeah,
just like it's like he's a, yeah, he's like a young. I mean, he is a young adult basically, but he's like super young.
yeah, like his vocabulary is like very elaborate.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so off of that, I guess how I'd say to end this, if anyone wants to connect with you, find you, talk about anything PT, anime, life, if you want to be found, what's the easiest way for people to find you?
Um, Definitely Instagram, the Perlmanator 03. Um, yeah.
All right, well, thank you for coming on, Hannah. This was a ton of fun, and definitely cool to hear about your experience in PT school and like relive the nostalgia of growing up with some animes that like people now will be like, oh, this is. I grew up with like Attack on Titan. It's like you just a child.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Like, yeah, I enjoy this very much, and hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Absolutely. I'll see you later.
See you.